Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast for Wednesday, April the 16th. I'm Zach Ewing, joined today by Scott Rabalais, our resident masters expert and our resident LSU gymnastics expert. So from one championship event to another, Rab was there in Augusta. Rory McIlroy in his dramatic victory in the playoff to win his first Masters, complete the career Grand Slam. Now we go from someone who's tried for 11 years, well, more than that, but 11 years to complete the career Grand Slam by winning the Masters, to a team looking to repeat, Rab, in the LSU gymnastics team. So that is what today's episode is about. We are brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health, the championship healthcare partner of LSU athletics. And the LSU women go up to Fort Worth, Texas this weekend, as do you, Rab. And they will compete against 7 of the nation's other top teams and look to do what they did last year.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you're not familiar with the NCAA Gymnastics Championships, it's a little like the College World Series. 8 teams advanced to this point, 2 teams from each of 4 regionals, and there's 2 semifinals. The top 2 teams from each semifinal advance to the national championship meet on Saturday afternoon. And from there, the national title will be decided for the teams. The individual NCAA titles, which are also very important, will be decided in Thursday's competition. And so each team will have their gymnasts, their 6 gymnasts competing in each event, and they'll have someone attached from a team that didn't make it, but they were very good individually. That's always one of the neat things to see. By the way, it's they kind of become part of that team, and they cheer for them too. The individual competitors. They don't usually win any of the NCAA titles, but it's still neat for them to make it there. So it's a neat event in a nice town, Fort Worth. They got a multi-year contract at Dickey's Arena, which is a great arena, one of the best arenas I've ever been in for a college event. And they've kind of embraced it, and then we'll see where they go. But yeah, the Tigers trying to repeat after so many years of trying to win the title, to get over the hump. After 4 runner-up finishes, they finally broke through last year. And now they're the number 1 overall seed, and they have as good a chance as anyone, if not better, to repeat. But you got to do it on that one night. Well, both nights. You got to do it on Thursday night, and you got to do it again Saturday in order to be national champion. And that's what tripped up Oklahoma last year when they didn't even make it to the final.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. And the Sooners are very likely LSU's top competition once again, but you just never know. I mean, the way things go. So as you mentioned, Rab, the way things work are there are 2 4-team semifinals that take place on Thursday. The first one is at 3:30 p.m. Is it 4:30 Eastern or 4:30 Central? I think it's
3:30 Central, yes.
Okay, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, and that is like a little mini SEC tournament that does not include LSU. It's 4 SEC teams. It's Oklahoma, number 2 seed. It is Florida, the number 3 seed. It is Missouri, the number 7 seed, and then Alabama, which got there kind of via an upset in the regionals. They are the number 11 national seed. So Oklahoma, Missouri, Florida, Alabama. Then the primetime semifinal at 8 o'clock is LSU, the number 1 seed, along with, and I believe this all held according to form, number 4 Utah, number 5 UCLA, and number 8 Michigan State. So they must finish in the top 2 of that foursome, LSU, Michigan State, Utah, UCLA. If they can do that, they will move on to Saturday's national championship, which starts at 3 o'clock with the top 2 from the other semifinal. And of course, everything is on the line. So that's the format here. You look at kind of the scores, Rab, and like a lot of these teams are posting 198s. We talked about Oklahoma. They were the only team to post a higher regional score than LSU. They had a 198.45, a very high score. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. And these Thursday semifinals can be crucial because last year, Oklahoma all of a sudden had a fall. It became contagious. They had a couple more. And before you know it, they were looking up. They only scored a 196.6 last year in the semifinal and were not able to make it to Saturday.
That's right. After being undefeated the entire season, in all the way through, and they were the overwhelming favorite and didn't even make it. I can share a quick story from last year. LSU competed in the first semifinal and they advanced through. So I went to their press conference and I'm writing down. I got my head down, and it's Oklahoma, Alabama, Utah, and I'm blanking on who it was the other team in the semifinal. I guess Florida in that semifinal. So 3 teams wearing red, right? So I'm not paying attention all that much, and just kind of assuming that Oklahoma is going to get through. And I've got my head down, I'm typing in the scores and stuff. Finally, I look up and I see Oklahoma's scores of 48 something, and I turned to this reporter next to me. I said, "What happened? They fell twice. They got they're out. Had their worst vault score in 16 years." And on their very first routine, and they just weren't able to recover. And that opened the door. It was very similar, Zach, to the 2023 women's Final Four when LSU beat Virginia Tech, and then South Carolina lost to Iowa in the other semifinal, and it kind of opened the door for LSU. Okay, it's theirs to win, and this is what it was like that for the gymnastics team. Theirs to win, and they did win it, pulling it out against Cal, who was somewhat of an upstart, which advanced with LSU from the semifinal. So. Anything can happen, obviously, as we saw last year, and but these are a lot of the similar teams that we're seeing again this year. A lot of familiar faces, as is kind of the case in women's gymnastics, and LSU is right up there on that very top tier of those teams. But talking about the regional scores, as you said, Oklahoma had the best regional final score in the nation, a 198.450. LSU had a 98.050, and Michigan State in LSU's regional at Penn State had a 198 flat. So that was those were the 3 best regional scores. Doesn't mean a whole lot. It means that they're capable of those scores, obviously. And 198, for people who are not very familiar, that's the threshold of, well, you had a really good meet. Okay, 200 is the perfect score. No one ever gets to 200. Obviously.
Well, it's not even possible, right? Because of starting difficulties. Not every gymnast has a starting difficulty of 10 on every event. So
LSU does, except for KJ Johnson on vault. She has a 9.5. That's the max score she get, because LSU could not even get a perfect score, and they've been harder to come by this year. So anyway, 198 is a really, really good score. So if you're somewhere in that range, you're going to advance, and you're going to have it. If you do that in the final, you have a real chance to win the title.
Yeah, and I mean, just to put that in perspective, you mentioned Oklahoma last year with the 48.325 on vault. They also had a 49.1 flat on beam, which was well below their standards. Also.
Yeah, they were just blown. Their minds were blown by that.
I think and that's why I say it's contagious. At some point, it gets in your head that this is not going our way tonight, and you start to lose focus or motivation or whatever it was. But the Sooners' final score of 196.6 on that night would not even have gotten them out of the semifinal of their regional. It was as bad of a score as they've had in years. So if you're LSU going into this year, you can't expect that to happen again. You're not going to get that assist every year. What you can do is look back at the 3 times that LSU has gone up against Oklahoma in competitions this year, and in 2 of those 3 times, the dual meet at LSU, and then also the SEC championships in Birmingham, LSU came out on top. So when they go head-to-head with Oklahoma, which they didn't have to do last year at Nationals, they have won 2 out of 3. And I think that has to give the Tigers a lot of confidence.
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, they met back in January in Oklahoma City, not on Oklahoma's home floor, but in Oklahoma City at the Sprouts Intercollegiate Quad. And it was very much an NCAA semifinal kind of thing. 4 teams competing, in Oklahoma won and LSU was second, but with a good early season score. And then they met in the SEC regular season. Just so happens Oklahoma's first year in the SEC competing, and they were assigned the way it felt. Next year LSU will go to Norman, but this year they came to Baton Rouge. LSU had a great score. Oklahoma had a good score, 197 something, but LSU was able to prevail. And then in the SEC championship meet, it's 2 4-team sessions. The best 4 teams, the 4 teams that really had a chance to win, competed in the evening session. And so we're talking LSU, Oklahoma, Florida, and Missouri, as it turned out. And LSU was able to prevail there again. And so, a lot of confidence. And so that's a plus for LSU on the Oklahoma side. And we're talking about Oklahoma as you would say LSU's chief competition, most likely in this national championship setting. Oklahoma's, I'm sure they've been pointing toward this all year. I'm sure they've had something to prove all year. Something to fight. It was embarrassing what happened to them last year in the national semifinals. I mean, this is just this program has won 6 of the last 10 national championships. They're there every year. They're right there again. They were number 1 most of the season until LSU took over and got the number 1 seed after winning the SEC championships because of their season average. and so their expectations are very high, and I'm sure they're looking at it as an anomaly, and they're looking to get back. So they've got a motivation that LSU doesn't have. LSU had one bad meet early in the season at Arkansas, like a 196.6, and that was motivation for them. But that was a long time ago. The second half of the season, they've been excellent.
And so that that's really it's LSU versus Oklahoma. If there was a third team that you think could get involved, is it Florida, the number 3 seed? I mean, I also kind of had my eye on UCLA as a team that could kind of pop. They've had a 198.45 this year. Are those kind of the teams in your head? Everybody who's there has had a 198 this year, with the exception of Alabama. Their top score is 197.65. So
that's right.
Anybody could do it, but I mean, those two stick out to me, Florida and UCLA. What about you?
Oh, yes. Florida had the best single meet score in the country this year, 198.625. It's tremendous score. LSU had the second best school record, 198.575 against Georgia in a home meet, and then Oklahoma had 198.475. UCLA 198.450. So I would point to Florida. Jay Clark often says they are, gymnast for gymnast, the most talented team in the country. But Florida doesn't always live up to that. I mean, I've seen them in a lot of SEC meets, national meets, where they just don't quite put it all together. And they've overcome some injuries during the season, but they can be excellent if they wire. They had their bars routine at the SEC championships was out of sight. I mean, they had like 210s, and they just killed it. But meanwhile, LSU didn't have LSU was the only team in the evening session in Birmingham that didn't have a perfect 10 by at least one gymnast. They were just consistently 985 to 995, just over and over and over again. No falls, didn't count anything bad, and that consistency won them the SEC championship. While every other team had at least one rotation of the 4 bars, vault, beam, floor, where they were just not quite up to the standard that LSU put out there. So you can expect Florida to go out there and just destroy it on something, and then they're going to have a couple of stumbles. That's what LSU has to avoid to be national champion again and to advance.
And I think LSU does have the built-in advantage of being the number 1 seed because they did beat Oklahoma. That's not the reason why. There's also the RQS score. It's a little more regimented the way these seedings work in gymnastics. But the fact that LSU is the number 1 seed actually is a pretty big advantage in my eyes, just because Oklahoma and Florida are both in the other semifinal. And so they both know, a bad day, you've already got one other very elite team in your semifinal. So all it takes is if you slip up a little bit, and then either Alabama or Missouri has a good day, all of a sudden you could be facing elimination that first day, where LSU would need 2 teams to kind of jump up and upset them to keep them out.
Yeah, that's true. But if you're looking at the All SEC semifinal, number 1, OU, Missouri, Florida, and Alabama. They're probably just happy to be there. They're kind of like LSU 2 years ago, which had lost Kaya Johnson early in the season with an Achilles injury, and they had to win a playoff, a scorecard playoff, basically, with Michigan to advance to nationals. And they made it all the way to the final, and they finished 4th. But Alabama was ranked 13th during the regular season. So like you mentioned at the top, it was kind of an upset there. Missouri, a good solid team, had a 198.1. If one of those teams slip up, I would say Missouri is the team that could take one of their places, OU or Florida, if they slip up. But it really should be Oklahoma and Florida making it through to the final from that side. And so for that, with that said, that they're the 2 most favored. You can make the argument that LSU's got the tougher semifinal because Utah has been very consistent as well all season long, and then UCLA has some very talented gymnasts with Jordan Childs, the U.S. Olympian gold medalist who's on their team. And then Michigan State performed very well in the regional final against LSU. Their gymnasts won the regional all-around title during the semis at Penn State, and then they put that 198, and they were right on LSU's tail all meet long. And first time they're in the nationals since 1988. The question for the Spartans is, are they satisfied with just making it? Do they really believe that they can win it, can break all the way through and win it all? When you see a team like LSU that's had to fight for it over the years, of the 8 teams there, 6 of these programs have won national championships before. Only Michigan State and Missouri have not. So you tend to go with chalk in gymnastics and say that the teams that have won it before, that have been there multiple times, are the ones that are more likely to make it through and have a chance to win it all.
Yeah, that's a good point. If the goal in the semifinals is simply to make the top 2, and it is, you don't lose or carry over any points.
No, nothing. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you start over.
You just need to be top 2. Then you could argue LSU actually has the tougher path, because there are 2 teams ranked in the top 5 in their semifinal, where Oklahoma and Florida, the next, sturdiest competition, would be number 7, Missouri. So just from that standpoint, maybe it's a little bit easier for them to make it through and just say, hey, it's the 2 of us, and we're better than the other 2 teams here. Now, having said that, things flip on Saturday from just not trying not to slip up and make sure you're top 2 into you have to kind of go for the gusto on Saturday, because, it's, look, if you want to win, you've got to beat everybody. So having said that, what do you expect LSU to do? I mean, it's basically going to be the same lineup that we have seen throughout the year, I would think. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to see a lot of Kaylin Chio. You're going to see a lot of Haley Bryant, and probably Aaliyah Finnegan would be the other one, and then fill in spots around them, right?
Yes, the one big difference for LSU, and those will be the 3 all-arounders, I would imagine. Bryant, who they brought on slowly after an elbow injury. Remember, she hurt her elbow on vault in their exhibition meet back in December. And first she did 1 event, then 2, then 3, and finally 4. And she's probably a lot fresher at this point in the season than she would have been at this point last year. Leah Finnegan, also, maybe they got her worked a little rest in here for her here and there, worked on her floor routine, but she's been tremendous. She's the one, of course, who clinched the national championship last year with her performance on beam. And then the freshman, Kaylin Chio, the best. She's been the best freshman in the country, no question. 5th in the all-around overall. Maybe showed a little fatigue at regionals, but now that she's had some rest, that she could do very well. But the only really big change for LSU is getting Connor McLean back on floor. She tore her Achilles last year warming up on floor last May in a pre-Olympic meet. She went from the LSU national championship to saying, I want to try to earn a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. And she was in this just warming up, not even performing, tore her Achilles. And so, but she made a great recovery. And all season she's been doing uneven bars and balance beam. And then finally, at the regionals, they added her back on floor. She's still not doing vault. These are what they call the leg events. This is the events that require you to have the spring are the more stressful on your legs, vault and floor. But having her back on floor is a big deal. They'd love to have KJ Johnson on floor. KJ Johnson shared the SEC floor title at last year's SEC championships, but she's had an ankle injury. She's just been doing vault. I don't expect to see her doing floor at nationals now. But that's the one thing I think LSU has, as Jay Clark, he doesn't really want to. I mean, he's had to balance chemistry and consistency with talent. And Connor McLean, arguably, is LSU's most talented gymnast. She won the U.S. all-around. She won the U.S. Nationals all-around title back in 2022. Before she came to LSU, that was before Simone Biles started competing again. So, but still very impressive to be able to win that. So she's tremendous. So having her back on floor is really a big deal. And that's the only real change I expect to see them make, barring some other kind of unexpected injury at the last second.
And so just to be clear, Connor McLean, she was on the floor exercise in the regional final, but not the regional semifinal. It was just the second time. So she's only done it once.
Yeah, but she's been coming on. They've been kind of looking for a place to put her in, and again, just trying to balance floor, which is a very good event for LSU, as it traditionally is, with taking someone out who's been doing really well. And so they inserted her in the lineup for that meet, and she had a nice performance, and I think they'll probably do that again in nationals. I would expect.
How about on the individual side? You mentioned Kaylin Chio ranked 5th in the all-around. What individual title hopefuls does LSU have?
That's a good question. I mean, you have to start with Haley Bryant again, right? She repeated as SEC all-around champion. If you can win the SEC all-around title, you can certainly win the national title, which she did last year. she has that potential. I would say her on vault as well. Haven't seen her do a really stupendous vault. I don't know if she's been a little bit gun shy or very good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I think she could be a little bit better. McLean on beam, she had a perfect 10 on beam at the SEC championships in 2024. She's been tremendous. And then Kaylin Chio on vault would be another one, and Aaliyah Finnegan on beam or on floor. She won the NCAA floor title last year. So it's tough. I mean, obviously it's tough to win any of those championships. But LSU has, out of those 4 gymnasts, I think those would be the ones to be the most likely to be able to claim a national title, or to last year they had the 2 titles with Bryant and Finnegan. And if you got one, it doesn't mean that, like you said, if you finish second in your semifinal, that maybe it means you don't have anyone who's did something national championship worthy. So what? You still get through to the final, and if you're consistently good in the final, you can win the team title, and that's what they're most interested in doing. And again, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Haley Bryant win a 3rd national individual championship. I would say she's likely to, but I think she has got as good a chance as anyone. And Aaliyah Finnegan to maybe repeat something to cap off their careers. They're both seniors. And then, but Chio, she could do what Bryant did as a freshman. Bryant won an NCAA vault title as a freshman in 2021. I could see Kaylin Chio being one of those people. Again, she's just a very, very clean and precise gymnast.
Yeah, and she is the future of this program. I mean, you mentioned the 2 seniors. Like, does this have a little bit of a feel of this is our chance to go get another title? And then they've always got good young gymnasts coming through LSU all the time. So I don't want to shortchange next year's team or anything, but like this is a golden opportunity for this program.
Oh, it's going to be a big change next year. They have 10 seniors on this roster. 4th, 5th, and the 6th year seniors on this roster. Bryant maybe surprised some people by coming back for a 5th year after winning the national championship. Saying just wasn't ready to give it up. But yeah, it's going to be there's a little bit of that feel. I mean, you got to feel it's going to be a little bit rebuilding next year, but where you're going to have Connor McLean as a junior and Kaylin Chio as a sophomore, Lexi Zeiss, who's been a freshman who's contributed a lot, and then Kalia Lincoln. We saw flashes of Kalia Lincoln on floor and on vault. She was a U.S. Olympic team alternate, came to LSU with a bad shoulder, and finally they shut her down. They said she's not going to compete anymore this season. So we didn't see her in NCAA regional play. So I don't think she even made the trip to Penn State. Kalia Lincoln, though, is a tremendously talented gymnast, and they got some good freshmen coming in for next year. So it'll be a much younger team in 2026. But I mean, it does seem like this, on the surface, seems like they're better opportunity. You have more dependable commodities. More people who've done it, and you've seen what they've done over the years. But they've got some really great gymnasts, coming up in the ranks. And way down the road, Hesley Rivera, who is on the U.S. Olympic team, is committed for. She might not come in until after the next Olympics, so we're talking way down the road. But she's also already on the committed, coming to Baton Rouge with her gold medal eventually.
All right. So the national championships begin Thursday with the semifinals, and if LSU is in the top 2 of its semifinal, the late one on Thursday, they will compete for a repeat national title on Saturday afternoon. Rab will be on the scene. You can read his stuff at theadvocate.com/LSU. And we'll be talking on this on the podcast next week, no matter what happens. But Rab, you got any? I don't want to make you make a prediction or anything, but you got any final thoughts? Do we finally get the LSU Oklahoma showdown for the national title we didn't get last year, or how do you see this shaking out?
Oh, I certainly think it'd be foolish to bet against Oklahoma. Like I said, that Oklahoma or Florida is really going to have to slip up to let Missouri or Alabama slip past them and get to the final. But we saw last year, what can happen, and it did happen, and it's all the kind of what ifs that the people talk about came home to roost. LSU, you certainly would expect they're gonna make it through the final. Like I said, they've been so good over the course of the second half of the season. They've just been so consistent that you really don't expect to see that they would be slipping up at this point. I'm looking back at the season schedule. They've had at least a 198 in every meet since they won at Kentucky with a 197.2 back on February 21st. So since late February, they've had a 198 in every meet. And if you do that, you're gonna advance. If you get 198 something, you're going to advance on Thursday. And then it's just their mantra this year. Last year it was get there. Well, they got there. Their mantra this year is just their normal is good enough, and they don't have to try too hard. They just their normal is good enough. And normal got them a national championship last year, and it could very well do that again this year. So, but who advances with LSU? It's very tough to say. UCLA is very capable. Utah's, like I said, been very consistent as well all year. And Missouri looked great in the regional. I just think they're going to be on this bigger stage. It's going to be a little tougher for Michigan State. So I would like LSU, and I'm going to say UCLA advancing to the final with Jordan Childs. So I would pick a final of LSU, UCLA, Oklahoma, and Florida, which is virtually a guarantee that those 4 teams will not make it.
I don't know if I would go that far. You are the person who had Chiefs Eagles in the Super Bowl. You got the ending wrong, but you got the matchup right. So right. We'll give you that much credit. Okay, he is Scott Rabalais. As I said, he will be in Fort Worth. You can check out all of his work, and we will follow up on the LSU Sports Insider next week, whether we have a new LSU national champion to fet or whether we talk about the Tigers coming up just short. We will talk to you either way. Thank you for watching. This has been the LSU Sports Insider. This episode was brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health, the championship healthcare partner of LSU Athletics. He is Scott Rabalais. I am Zach Ewing, and we thank you for joining us.